In 1956, Martin Luther King Jr. was a 26-year-old Baptist minister in Montgomery, Alabama. A few months earlier, Rosa Parks had refused to give up her seat on the bus, and the bus boycott began, and King found himself leading this boycott because he was the youngest, newest pastor in town, and all the other wiser, older pastors knew it was a suicide mission to lead the bus boycott. On the night of January 27th, 1956, King was woken up in the middle of the night by a phone call. The voice on the other end of the line told King that if he and his family were not out of town within 3 days, they would all be dead. Now, if you're a black minister in Montgomery, Alabama, leading a bus boycott in 1956, that is not an idle threat. King was terrified. He couldn't go back to sleep. So he poured himself a cup of coffee in his kitchen in the middle of the night, and he sat down at the kitchen table, buried his face into his hands, and he said that he was paralyzed by fear, consumed by it. And all he could think about was how was he going to get himself and his family out of Montgomery without losing the respect of the rest of the community. The power of fear was making him contract inward in that posture of self-preservation, thinking only of himself. But over his coffee in the middle of the night, King said he heard a second voice, not the voice of someone over the telephone. He said it was an inner voice. He reported this later in a sermon. This is what the voice said to him. Stand up for righteousness. Stand up for justice. Stand up for truth. And lo, I will be with you even until the end of the world. The voice promised never to leave me alone. No, never alone. He promised to never leave me, never to leave me alone. That night, over his cup of coffee in his kitchen, King experienced the presence of Christ in a way he never had before. And it changed his vision of the world. Now, King was a Baptist minister, knew the Bible backwards and forwards, seminary trained. He was the son of a Baptist minister, spent his whole life in the church. He knew the faith, he knew the doctrine, he knew the truth. But for the first time in his life, the reality of a God with us world was not just an intellectual knowledge, it was an experienced reality. If we were Methodists, we would say that his heart was strangely warmed. He was transformed in his vision of the world. And he said, at that moment, I knew that I could stand up without fear and I could face anything. He said his fear was absolutely and completely gone. When we experience the reality of a Christ with us world, not just as a doctrinal truth, not just as a scriptural truth, but as an experienced truth, it changes the way we see the world and it takes away our fear. And it's only then that the calling of the Christian life begins to make sense and can begin to be actually lived out. Well, King's new vision of the world was going to be tested 3 nights later. He was gathered in his church for a rally about the bus boycott when someone barged into the back of the congregation and shouted that King's house had just been firebombed, the parsonage just down the road. Everyone flooded out of the church, ran into the street with King, and they found his house on fire. King found his wife and his infant daughter. He got them out of there. Thankfully, they were safe, but he knew that a greater threat was in front of him. Because around his burning home had gathered a giant mass of angry black citizens from Montgomery, wielding baseball bats and rifles who were ready to riot because of this attack on their leader's home. And he knew that if something wasn't done, many other people were going to die that night. So King did something which is unbelievable. He stood on the porch of his still burning house and he addressed the crowd. And this is what he said to them. He who lives by the sword will die by the sword. But I want you to love your enemies. Be good to them. Love them and let them know that you love them. For we are doing what is right. We are doing what is just. and God is with us. Upon hearing that, everyone dropped their weapons, their bats, their rifles, and they held hands together and they began to sing a hymn. Guess which one? Amazing Grace. There was no riot that night. No one was killed. One of the white police officers who was at the scene said that if it hadn't been for that black preacher, we would have all been dead. Historians look at that night as the turning point in the civil rights movement in the United States. The moment when love, instead of vengeance, took the lead. The moment when love for your persecutor, when the teachings of Jesus came to the forefront in the civil rights movement, and it ended up transforming our country. I think the historians are wrong. That was not the turning point in the civil rights movement. The turning point was 3 nights earlier in King's Kitchen, when his vision of the world was transformed because he had a profound encounter with Christ, and he became convinced that this was a God with us world in which he was perfectly safe. A world in which neither height nor depth, neither angels nor demons, neither white supremacists or the KKK, were not a Roman cross or an assassin's bullet, would ever separate him from the love of God in Christ. And it freed him and many others to love even their enemies. We have more resources than any Christians who have ever lived. What we need to engage our culture is not more money. It's not more churches. It's not more Bible studies. It's not more Christian bookstores. It's not more Christian radio stations. It's not more Christian colleges and universities. It's not some slick new program that's going to engage young adults. What we need is a profound encounter with Jesus Christ that transforms our vision of the world, so that we would be set free from fear, free from the politics of fear, free from the cultural wars of fear, so that we might be set free to love the people who are aligned against us. That we would love the politicians who don't agree with us. That we would love the lobbyists and the people in our school boards and in our neighborhoods who don't agree with us. That we would be set free to bless those who curse us. To serve those who hate us. To affirm those who disagree with us. To forgive those who have wronged us. And when we become that kind of church, then the light of the gospel will go forth. Then a generation will look at us and say, what is going on there? Then Christ will be lifted up in our land and draw all people to himself. How does that happen? It happens exactly the way the song says it does. By God's amazing grace. I can't give you a 3-step process. I can't say, buy my book and your life will be transformed. I can't say, just engage this program and you'll see the world differently. It comes when, like King, we've come to the end of our control. When we've given up, when we're burying our hands in our face over a cup of coffee in the middle of the night because the world has not gone the way we've wanted it to. When we've surrendered ourselves to him so utterly and in dependence upon him that his grace falls upon us. And he meets us in our need and he opens our eyes. It comes when we realize the truth that control is an illusion. You never had it, and you never will. And you surrender yourself to a God of love. When that happens and we experience God's grace, individually and collectively as his people, then we will be able to truly sing that I once was blind, but now I see.